Okay. All right, so I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, October 13th, 2021 meeting of the Public Safety Committee. We do have a quorum present with Pro Tem Betancourt and Alderman DeLucia. Alderman Nash may be able to join us a little bit later, but may not. So we move on to our first item on our agenda, the adoption of previous meeting minutes. I know that the recording secretary sent those out to everybody on the committee. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Seconded by the chair. Is there any additions, deletions, corrections, or other discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. By roll call to adopt the minutes. Pro Tem Betancourt?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, and unanimously carried. Thank you. Second item on our agenda, actually technically item number 3 is citizen comment. If there are any citizens who wish to comment, please make sure you state your name and address for the record. Are there any citizens in the meeting that would like to comment to make a comment to the committee tonight? Are there any citizens in the meeting that would like to make a comment to the committee tonight? Third and final time, are there any citizens in the meeting that would like to make a comment to the committee tonight? Hearing and seeing none, I declare citizen comment closed. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4 on our agenda, unfinished business. COVID-19 update is the first thing. Mr. Salomon, sorry about that. Mr. Salomon, would you like to lead us off on that item?
I sure will. Next week, the 22nd, which is next Friday, we'll take another look at where we are as far as infection rate and make a determination if we continue with the mask mandate in indoor spaces. Frankly, it's leveled off, but it has not dropped appreciably over the last 3 or 4 weeks. It hasn't gone up, but it really hasn't gone down very much. And our immunization rate is still far below the state average, and they go hand in hand. The lower the rate of immunizations, usually the higher the infection rate. And that's unfortunate, but they're tied together. We're one of two counties that are still in the highest level of infection rate. The other counties are what they call substantial. You know, it's a degree of measurement. I don't know if there's that much difference, but we are higher, Windham County and New London County. So I was hoping to remove the mandate. I wanted to see a couple of weeks of declines. So I haven't seen that yet. So at next week, the best we'll do is have a week of declines, hopefully. It may not be enough of strong evidence to take it off. Now, I know that there's a lot of people that are interested in having us do that. I would tell you that most people have gotten into a pretty good routine on it, and I don't see a lot of adverse effects in the business community per se on it. But we'll check it next week and see where we are. But for now, the good news is it's leveled off. The bad news is really not dropping substantially. So I'll take any questions you might have.
Mark?
I don't know if it's a question so much, Sean, as much as a statement, because of course, you know, we have our little shop in Mystic, and I'll tell you that, you know, by and large, this is pretty much, it's become a fairly regional thing. And Tia asked me today, even if there was something going on statewide because of the number of people that were actually wearing masks without any level of
Yeah.
BS going on. So it's certainly it seems to be that way in the area. So I don't think, and I think those that are, protesting the wearing a mask or whatever, I think those are the outliers and not, certainly not a majority of the people in town. So,
Yeah, they're pretty, unfortunately, they're pretty outspoken.
yeah, a vocal minority, no doubt.
Yeah, they are very much vocal,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So my first question is, the last I saw, and it was a newspaper report, the state average is around 2% infection rate.
Yeah, it's been like that for a couple of weeks now. It hovers, between 1.5 and 2.5,
Where,
something like that.
where's New London County compared to the statewide average?
6 to 7.
So I will tell you that, I've been around town, and I go into a lot of local businesses, some of the larger stores. One grocery store in particular, 50% of the people that are in there are not wearing masks. The people that work in there are wearing masks, although many of them are wearing them inappropriately below their nose. But the customers are not wearing their masks. I would say 50%. That just anecdotally, just based on my observation. I was in a local restaurant last night, and aside from the serving staff, I was the only one wearing a mask until I got my food. I mean, people were in there, they did not even have their masks with them. So that's why I would say that, maybe I won't say why, but it's definitely a huge contributing factor, because I don't think that's just Norwich. I think that is the region and it's holding the infection rate up. I'll say something else. I am the contact tracer at my place of employment, and we're seeing, when we're 100% masks 100% of the time, and we're still seeing breakthrough infections with people who are vaccinated, fully vaccinated. We're seeing quarantine rates increasing for those who are not vaccinated. I've had staff out on quarantine. I've had staff test positive. I've had students test positive, and this pandemic is far from over. So I would advocate that, unless we see a market change and a market decrease in the next 7 days, well, okay, call it, 10 days maybe. I think we need to stay the course, because the mask wearing is the biggest contributing factor to stopping the spread. That's obvious. The science is behind it. And those who are refusing to do it, I don't know that we should get into enforcement action, but they're just delaying the end of this pandemic. And I think it's really just as simple as that.
We do enforcement if we're called. So if somebody came in and was wearing a mask and felt uncomfortable that half the store didn't have one, the police would go there and remind the owners that they have a responsibility to do that. Now, the problem with that is, as soon as we leave, there's not a lot of thing you can do unless you want to have a confrontational situation that you can do it. But we will respond to complaints. But it's not going to solve the problem, but it may correct it temporarily.
Well, yeah, and I don't mean to debate this, and certainly
Yeah,
not
I understand.
But show me a business owner that wants the cops to show up and start handing out summonses for people not wearing masks in their business.
No, they don't want that.
Right.
They don't want that. So, I mean, I was hinting that I don't think I'm going to be dropping the mask mandate next week. We haven't seen a drop, really. It's been just kind of level for about a month now, Joe.
Yeah. I could see that. So, I mean, in the context of this meeting, I'm sure that when we have the department reports, I would ask that just refresh all of our memories on what protective practices that each of our departments are doing, because, I don't see my role as part of this community, part of this committee, is to be out in the community and telling people that they have to wear, a mask. I model the behavior, but I certainly don't want, to be ringing up the police department and demanding that enforcement action be taken. I just keep reminding people that we're better off if people wear a mask. But my greater concern as the chair of this committee is our first responders, right? And it is for our first responders and what we're doing to keep them safe. And I'm sure that we're going to hear from the chiefs and, and from the rest of the stakeholders here that we're maintaining our protective practices. And I'm hopeful for that. I'm sure that's what we're going to hear. And that's where my greatest concern lies. Because if a large group of the community is not going to wear a mask, then, I want our people who have to deal with them to be protected as best we can.
Agree 100%. And obviously combining the non-mask with the reluctance to get the vaccine is a double whammy, so to speak. And, we're lagging in both areas, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'll say I just got my booster today.
All right.
So,
I'm waiting. I have the Moderna, so I can't get it yet.
All right. Well, all right. Thank you for that update. That's very informative. It was a good discussion. Moving on to item B under number 4 on our agenda is the city manager's report on the fire chiefs meeting. I do have the report. Matter of fact, it went out to the committee members and to the recording secretary. John, you
Yes.
want to give us the highlights?
Sure. We're very close on the radio project to have a number. As you know, that the number that we have, we're going to divide the purchase of the system in two. So half of the purchase would be out of this year's allotment of ARP, and half would be out of the next allotment for next May to 2022. We're estimating in excess of 3 million, maybe closer to 3.4. So that would be about 1.7 for this year. Looks like the numbers are coming down a little bit. So I think within a week we'll have some good numbers to talk, and then I would bring that to the council just for ratification. That's a big allotment, and I think it's deserving of the council ratifying it, especially since we'll be really committing 2 years of it. So, and that'll be the biggest expenditure we have, over 3 million. That would be the highest proportion of what our funds are. It'd be about almost 10. It'd be more than 10%, about 12% of the funds. So we're moving close on that. We talked about dispatch, and we're going to have a representative of the police department at the next chiefs meeting, which is next week, October 19th. So it's a week from yesterday. Because no matter how good the system is and the radios are, dispatch has to be parallel to that. And so they have to be integrated into the system. So it's very important that they're part of the solution and not later on kind of layered onto it. So earlier in the process, they need to be put in. Then we got interrupted by the remnants of Hurricane Ida. And they responded to over the fire department, over 70 calls for service. There were no reports of injuries, substantial property damage, mostly in the private sector, with the Comfort Inn leading the way with damages and estimates of over $1 million worth of damage. Basically, the water flowed in from the river and went right through the basement, which is where they have all their utilities located. So it's a big ticket item. FEMA made a visit to the city a week ago to do a preliminary damage assessment. They were escorted to about 15 sites, again, mostly in the private sector. We did not sustain a lot of substantial damage, a lot of erosion and things, but no real substantial damage to it. One of the worst areas was the hospital parking lot, which about 40 individual automobiles were submerged up to their doors. So they were quite a bit of damage. And this is where it gets into long-term. You're on Public Works, and in talking with the Public Works director, we're looking at a longer-term solution, which would expand the retention basins upstream from that drainage area, which would be in the area of the Tech High School and the middle school and a senior center. There's a real conglomerate there of a lot of pavement, and it's the high point. And there is a retention basin there now, but it's not adequate to really hold the water back and slow it down. So we're going to be spending some money from ARP to do an extensive hydrological study of that area for recommendations. And that we're hoping that will be a solution to some of the problems downstream from that area. And it's not always just the hospital, it's also the radio station in that area also. So that's I'm overlapping with Public Works, but that's how they kind of integrate with that. Finally, we talked about automatic aid. There was some concern about simultaneous calls. Most of the time, the calls are medical, so they wouldn't necessarily be simultaneous aid and all those. But we're discussing that. We're looking at the statistics, and the chiefs are working on a master response for the AA, and it's an important part of our discussions. So that's kind of a synopsis, John.
Okay, thank you for that. Mark, any questions to the city manager?
Yeah, so you mentioned some of the flooding. I was over at East Town Street not too long ago, and it would appear that the water that is involved with the problem there is coming down from, I'm pretty sure is coming down from Fairview Reservoir. So since we've got some claim to that, it could be that, maybe we need to, I think there's some, detention up there, but with some of the overflow, but particularly with the water levels being so high now, there's no holding the water back there if we get any significant rain event right now. So I think that's the kind of situation we're in there. I don't know if there's something we can look into for that area regarding water retention for the reservoir there.
Well, I gave the example of the upstream from the basin that drains into the river via the hospital property, but we will look at other areas too. You know, hydrological studies get pretty complicated, Mark, as you probably know. And
Yeah, I can imagine,
yeah.
but this one's pretty obvious just by looking at a satellite view of
Yeah.
what's going on. So you
Yeah.
can trace it right back,
Sure.
right to Fairview. So,
Mhm.
but I think it's a combination of the fact that water levels are so high right now, and the
Yeah.
fact that hey, that just we got that overflow,
Oh,
from
I
the
agree.
reservoir.
Yeah, I agree.
Joe,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
how are you? Good. Just real quick comment. As far as the former reservoirs and their use, which they're not any longer, maybe we ought to look at lowering them down a certain amount when we are understanding that we're going to be receiving such amount of rain, start to lower their levels. They're not engaged in potable water anymore, whether it's that one or even the one in Taftville.
Right.
And the other thing I just wanted to share quickly, that study for the hydrology of that whole area should also include the Washington Street extension, because there was some significant flooding over there. I was visiting with Art Lathrop last week, and he had significant water that carried down from Holland Road across Coit Lane, overflowed the Cadam that was there, which is a good 6 inches high, and it poured down through 2 areas of his own cellar. He was flooded pretty severely, where he had to actually repaint his whole cellar floor and parts of the garage under the house. But there are other areas in between those 2 points, the reservoir and the other site, that all get water off that main hill, which is basically out of Mohegan Park. That's the constant. Even into Greenville, there was some flooding down there on Mohegan Park Road. I saw that last weekend.
Mhm.
Same impact, everything coming off that major hill, which is really the center of the city. But as far as the old reservoirs go, we could schedule lowering their water levels ahead of time, now that we've seen such an impact. And if it's true, we're going to get more heavy rains, situations like that going forward, we ought to be ahead of the curve. Just my 2 thoughts. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are the reservoirs, is Public Works responsible for the reservoirs, or is MPU responsible to?
Fairview
reservoir.
I believe, is still a backup, although it's not utilized. So that one is, I think NPU still controls. I'm not sure
We-
about
Yeah.
Taftville.
We do. I'm also not sure Taftville. I'm going to have to look into that, but I do know Fairview is still our control. And I did hear your question, Mr. Mayor, so I'm going to look into that for you.
Thank you.
Mark, I think the reservoir you were looking at is Bog Meadow, because Fairview's way over to the right. Bog Meadow is up off of Plain
Scotland.
Hill, Scotland Plain Hill.
Right.
Bog Meadow, Fairview's on the lower end of Scotland.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. No, this is actually Bobbin Mill Brook runs off of Fairview and comes all the way down across Canterbury and down to, I tracked it before, and goes down to through East Town Street through a culvert. So that's what it is. So,
Okay.
but I know what you're talking about there. There's that piece too, but that, what I'm talking about is directly related to Fairview.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that? No, thank you very much. Oh, go ahead, John.
No, I said, we're good, Joe. We're good.
Oh, okay, great. So moving on to new business, item A, department and agency updates. We'll run right down the list. NPU. Hello, Eric. Good to see you again.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Alderman. Apologies for missing the last 2 meetings. Unfortunately, the Navy felt I had somewhere else to be, but it's nice.
No
We continue to
apology
monitor. We continue to monitor the developments with COVID-19 with our leadership team daily. We are working very closely with local and state health officials to make sure we are taking all the appropriate precautions to keep our staff and our customers safe, including a mask mandate for all personnel inside of all our facilities and whenever we enter a customer's home. Both reservoirs right now are at full pond, and we continue with our hydrant flushing program. Right now, we are currently working in the Greenville area. We've also been working with police, emergency management, the fire departments, and the city manager on the radio system upgrade. We are supporting the shifting of the city EOC to the state system, along with the fire departments as part of phase 2. And then NPU is also making preparations to shift our operations over to the system as part of phase 3. We are also currently working with American Ambulance to support upgrades to their radio system. They recently had some troubles, most of them associated with some outages. So we are working with them to see if we can come up with a better solution. We are also reaching out to all of the fire chiefs to schedule our annual gas and electric training. So for any of the chiefs, if you guys have not received an email from us, please let me know. If you can shoot me an email after this meeting, I'd greatly appreciate it. But we are looking to schedule that over the next month or two. And then lastly, today we hosted a successful flu vaccine clinic. Pending your questions, that's all I have.
Mark? So I do have a question. It goes back to the mayor's comment. Regardless of who actually is maintaining and controlling our backup res, right? And it's actually, I see 4, right? There's Taffo Res 1, Taffo Res 2, Bog Meadow, and then Fairview. Do we have the systems in place to be able to control the water levels in those?
So that's where I don't want to say one way or the other right now. I have to talk to Larry, our water integrity manager, and that's what I'm going to look out. So I'll talk to him tomorrow, and I'll get a response back to the committee.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, if nothing else, we'll move on to American Ambulance. Rob, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. So in the last month, we responded to 725 emergency calls in the city of Norwich, which is up 40 from last year and up almost 100 from the year prior. So things are going, unfortunately, that direction. However, we remain, obviously here and responding. As far as COVID is concerned, I know you'd asked for an update. We are at 100% compliance with our vaccine mandate. We did unfortunately lose two team members who weren't able to comply with the vaccine mandate, but other than that, we are 100% vaccinated at this point. We do maintain a mask mandate inside our building at any time that we're out in the community as well. And in addition to that, all patients that are delivered to Bacchus Hospital are masked prior to, well, hopefully once they get in the ambulance, but they're definitely prior to getting into the hospital as well to help mitigate that. That's just Bacchus's policy. Our PPE stores are still sufficient, and we continue to utilize our COVID-19 toolkit, which we generated internally. We have made some recent updates to that based on OSHA's emergency temporary standard, which came out, which affects us as healthcare providers. I don't know that it would affect to such a degree anybody else on the call, but we have been making adjustments based on the OSHA recommendations for that. We are not currently undergoing any significant outages for staffing secondary to COVID at this point. Everybody seems to be doing well and healthy. We have had a couple of people who had to be tested, but thankfully everybody was negative. We did also hold a flu vaccine clinic last week, and we'll hold another one here shortly to try to get that out into our staff as well. Thanks to Department of Health for that. Any of your questions, I don't have a whole lot more to offer.
I'm good.
As am I. Thank you very much, Rob. All right, moving on to the police department. Chief Daly.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
You have my report. It was a very busy month in September for crime activity wise.
Clearly.
Yeah, it was very, very busy. Kind of backs up what Rob saw on the EMS side. Things are ticking back to normal plus. COVID wise, the building is open, but there's a mask mandate inside the building, and officers are back to the level of being masked when dealing with citizens inside. We've had no COVID impacts this month, and I think our calls for non-compliance have petered off. There's a little bit of mask fatigue going on. I think people are tired of calling about places or complaining. People are starting to draw their lines in the sand. So we're not getting a lot of calls, which puts us out of that, gets us out of that sticky situation you spoke of about mask wearing. We had one new hire in September, going to the police academy. We have 3 officers at the police academy already. We had one retirement in October, so that'll be in next month's report. So staffing continues to be a concern. We have probably 4 officers out with long-term comp injuries that are affecting our operations. But other than that, we are getting by, and I'll answer any questions anybody has.
Mark?
No, I'm good, Chief. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You give a nice, your written reports
Yeah.
are pretty good. I like those.
I was just gonna say the same thing. Your written report is very detailed and informative, and I appreciate it. All right, so thank you for that, Chief. Moving on to emergency management, Chief Montoya.
Good evening. For emergency management, as City Manager alluded to earlier, we are doing some follow-up with FEMA and DEMIS on Ida remnant damage. Director Waters took FEMA, the Small Business Administration rep, and DEMIS on a tour last week, and he was out again today. And they visited some more more residents, and I think one business today. Unfortunately, I'm going to say the preliminary on this looks like the county won't meet the threshold for aid. They were going to East Lyme after they left Norwich today, so hopefully there'll be some, I don't know if that's the right way to say this, but hopefully there'll be some damage down there that'll put us over the threshold. But I got to give a big thanks to everyone that helped Mark out with that, and especially to Mark for his efforts. Mark Waters, that is, Public Works. Just Brian Long was great. The mayor was at our meeting last week, and really, it's kind of eye-opening for a number of us in learning about flood insurance and the National Flood Insurance Program and the damages and what insurance companies, homeowners or auto will cover or won't cover. So I spoke to the mayor last week on this, and I think not only in educating ourselves, but we have a responsibility to also educate our community on how to best prepare themselves for future storms. So the damage assessment is ongoing. Again, I'm trying not to be pessimistic here, but the preliminary is that we probably will not meet the county threshold to qualify for aid. But we did learn in our meetings about some other grant programs that may help us for mitigation in the future. So let me make sure I'm not missing anything. That's all I have from the emergency management front. It was, in terms of storms, a quiet month for us, thankfully, because we got slammed right there at the end of August and the beginning of September. So Penny, any questions? That's all I have from emergency management.
Mark?
I'm good.
No questions for me on emergency management. We can move into the Norwich Fire report.
Yes, sir. All right, for the COVID update and to your comment earlier about the numbers in the city and protecting our first responders, we are still both stations close to the public. We have not modified our COVID responses from where they were before in the height of the numbers. The crews still do their best to minimize patient contact, depending on the nature of the call, whether it's trauma or CPR call where they have to engage. They're limiting it to only essential personnel. They're deconning each other in the field before they get on the apparatus. Our PPE supplies are more than adequate. We're doing quite well there. And in fact, if anyone needs any, please reach out and we'll share. So that, thankfully, no new cases over the past month. We did have one breakthrough case a couple months ago with no significant medical impacts, but no new ones over the past month. Our vaccination rate is not as high as I would like it to be. I had some discussion with the union president on that, and just trying to look at ways to maybe bump that up a little bit. So that's the COVID update. For response data, I submitted the reports this morning. So if you don't have any questions on the reports, I'll just move on to my other data.
I do not have a question on your report, and it was sent to
Okay.
all the members.
For significant responses, I don't want to say the Q word, for the fire department hates that, but a relatively quiet month for us. One significant response of note is we received a call for a boat taking on water in the river from another boater. So the Marine unit responded in the waterway down the Thames, and the battalion chief responded along the shoreline. And they found a boat moored, tied up to some pierings off the foot of Terminal Way, Shipping Street area that was partially submerged. They determined no personnel on board. It was on, private property, if you will, out of the channel and secured to the mooring. So once they determined no hazard and no life hazard, Coast Guard was notified, DEEP was notified, and again, they cleared the area after that. Now, the city manager's office, as well as the fire department, took a call about 10 days after that initial call. So initial call was 23 September, that there was a hazard in the area, a fluid spill. So there were some pictures and there was a sheen around the boat. We did have crews respond, and Coast Guard was notified again. My understanding is that the owner of the boat has been working with the salvage company to have the boat raised and removed. And the first crane that they sent to the scene wasn't adequate. It wasn't big enough. So they're going back there. Coast Guard's determination on the sheen was that it was not an actionable amount in their words. So no action was taken on the sheen. It was considered minimal on their part. And they are, again, the boat's not a hazard to navigation because it's out of the channel. And they are working with the owner to ensure that it is removed as soon as possible. For critical needs, this is a big one. And, sometimes, I say it tongue in cheek about, I hate to be a broken record about Squad A, but here we are. So Squad A is currently out of service for a major engine rebuild. Engine 4 has been in service since it went out of service about 10 days ago. Knowing that it was going out of service with communications with fleet maintenance, I had inquired of the other chiefs if another engine goes out of service and our spare is already in use, we would need to borrow one. Chief Milton very graciously stepped up and offered engine 52. That was our plan. Again, that was in place a couple weeks ago. And we had to activate it this weekend because engine 2 went out of service for a transmission issue. So Sunday afternoon, I'm communicating with Chief Milton. He was, great. Probably less than an hour. We had engine 52 in quarters, swapped some equipment, and we were fully staffed with engines. With that, engine 52 came with a caveat, if you will, a little hitch in the system that it has an intermittent pump engagement problem. Fleet maintenance is aware of the problem, and please, Chief Milton, if I speak out of line, set me straight. But the pump engagement issue is intermittent. They can't replicate it or figure out the source of it. Our crews have, engaged the pump multiple times, put it through its paces, and didn't encounter any problems, but it was still a concern. I had hoped for engine 2 to be back in service already, but it isn't. So to err on the side of not encountering that pump engagement issue in a critical time, we have since taken 52 out, and we borrowed engine 32 from Yannick. So a big thanks to Chief Ibers for that. So so again, you always hate to see the things that you repeatedly comment about come to fruition, but here we are without a squad in service and without a spare engine. So you guys have heard me countless times, and my predecessor countless times ask for Squad A. This current time just demonstrates the need for it. So we'll address it as we go forward. So that's my biggest thing on critical needs is, the engine is at the front. One of the things we've kind of gleaned from this process over the past few days is, and I'll address this with the chiefs and the city manager at our next meeting, is a better format of a lineup for spare pieces, inside or outside of the CCD, interdepartment on the volunteer side, whatever it may be. As an entity, the fire service in Norwich needs to work together to have that in place ahead of time. Engine 52, as much as I appreciate it, it's a 1993. It had, as I noted earlier, the question of the intermittent pump engagement issues. And, again, if Chief Milton, please, if I say something I shouldn't be saying, stop me or correct me. But, I guess if I have concerns that I want to use it as a replacement piece for something, those same concerns should be shared with Chief Milton. So I don't know all the details on it. I don't know what fleet maintenance has done to try to replicate the problem with the pump engagement. I don't know how often it's happened for EGP, but I just want to share that sentiment that, we need to look at that, especially when we have other pieces in the city that are newer, used less frequently, that could have stepped up and been a replacement. So again, I'll take that topic to the chiefs and the city manager at our next meeting. So moving on from that, staffing, we're currently in the process for recruit firefighters. The written test was conducted last month. The physical exam and the oral boards will be conducted this month. And we just got to jump on it early. We wanted to get it knocked out before the winter and have some candidates ready for the spring academy class at recruit program at the fire academy. As I mentioned in the COVID update, both facilities are still closed to the public. However, we are doing city meetings, coordination meetings with partner agencies and other things. Fully masked in the building, temperature check for visitors and employees alike, and we're good to go there. On the fire services note, as a city manager hit all my bullets earlier, or most of them, we did meet with the city manager on the last month, and the chiefs and I weren't able to meet because, like Mr. McDermott, the Navy had better ideas of where I should be and where I should spend my time. So I spent a couple of weeks in Newport, and I didn't have a lot of free time here. So, but we did meet with the radio reps, the Connecticut Telecommunication System, the CTS team. If you haven't had the privilege, I'll say, of interacting with those guys, I'll call them in the most respectful way I can, nerds, but they are some very sharp and very intelligent people who know their business. They're putting us on the right path to make sure that everything we have in mind in place for the Norwich Fire Service radio systems and for dispatch is done properly. So the chiefs are their representatives, whoever was available. We did meet with them last week. Myself and Lieutenant Dupree from Taffield met with them again, one of them again today, this morning, to discuss implementation of talk groups, tactical channels, and things like that. So very helpful there. I think from the chiefs meetings, that's pretty much all I had because the city manager covered a lot of good points. So some notes I took when others were speaking. I will speak to the city manager's comment about us. When we have the meetings and we discuss different departments, I think the only the proper thing to do is have representatives from those departments present at the conversation. So we did invite the police department to our next meeting. This afternoon, I got a reply from Captain Vega that he and one of the dispatches will attend our meeting next week. So that's good. So not only are they aware of our concerns, but they're also able to get their input to us directly. So that's a big thing. The gas training for NPU, Norwich is complete. Thank you. Kudos to those guys as always. Great presentation. But all 4 platoons are done with Norwich. We will have a flu vaccine clinic at fire headquarters on the 19th. If you're unable to make the city's clinic at City Hall on the 15th and the 19th works for you, just blast me a note or Tina a note and you can come down to the firehouse. Make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm gonna make a request of, is Rob still on? Rob is still on the call. Rob, you had made a note mention in your comments about masks being on the patient prior to arriving to the back to the ER, and you try to get it into the ambulance as well. So, you're protecting crews. I'm going to ask you to, and I'm sure you guys are doing it, but I just want to make sure that we also make the effort to push that one step back, and even before crew interaction on the scene of the call, that we're trying to get people to mask up when they can. Understand difficulty breathing or the calls, it's difficult. But, just in reading some of the exposure reports that I've had at the firehouse, that's my first question to the officer writing the report. Was the patient masked? If not, why not? And again, understanding that there are reasons not to mask every patient, but when we can, just in part of that effort, vaccination rates, everything else aside, we still need to take those little steps to protect our crews. So pending any questions, that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Mark?
I'm good, thanks.
I have a question, Chief, but because you said the phrase, three different times, vaccination rates, but the question really goes to the city manager. Do we have a vaccination mandate similar to what the state has done in the city of Norwich?
No, we're waiting for OSHA guidance. OSHA is in charge or been designated by the federal government to regulate small businesses, which is defined of over 150. So it's actually would fit the city's personnel level. So we've been waiting on that for a couple of months, and I'm not sure where it is, but we are waiting for that guidance before we implement any further mandates.
So.
Let me add on to that, Joe, if I may.
Oh, go, please.
From the fire department and departmental perspective, I'm actually looking at it, whether the city go to it or not. Some informal discussion with the union. You know, I've had a discussion with chiefs across the state, some whose town have mandates and some of the challenges they're facing. And, you know, as you know, I think as probably everyone on this call knows, and a lot of people that really didn't need to know, the union was very vocal and took some action recently with the labor board regarding COVID policies and things like that. But I can't get, you know, what I would call a really good vaccination rate out of guys who claim to be on the front line dealing with this stuff on a daily, hourly, weekly, minute basis. I think the last numbers I had were about 67% for eligible firefighters that were vaccinated, and not holding any punches here. In my opinion, that's just way too low. So I don't know when OSHA, I mean, this OSHA thing that the city manager references has been out there for weeks and they just haven't followed through with it. So I'm not going to wait on that. I don't know. I'm not committing myself to a vaccine mandate right now, but I just want people to know that I am looking at it and contemplating it just for the fire department.
Thank you for that additional information. I have some strong opinions on the matter, although they are just opinions, right? I have no authority in my workplace, but the governor did sign orders, right? Saying that you're either going to be vaccinated or you're going to test every week and you're going to submit your results every single week. And again, this is part of what it's going to take to overcome this pandemic. All right. So to me, you either need to show that you've been fully vaccinated, or you need to show that you can test negative and on a weekly basis. My strong union feelings aside, I think that it's a matter of the public good, a matter of the good for the municipality and its employees. So I would encourage you to continue to look into it. And if OSHA is not going to give you the answers that you need, then maybe we need to look at what the state has done and you know, use that as somewhat of a framework, and at least use that as the basis for the discussion with the different locals, because I'm sure that the leadership of the unions is interested in keeping their membership healthy and safe as well. So that's my thought, but again, it's just my opinion. I'm not giving any commands or direction.
Not that you have the authority to.
Exactly. Right. Exactly right.
But I mean, I'll throw my 2 cents in. Obviously, I agree, but you know, from a management standpoint, I mean, obviously you've got CBA issues to worry about, collective bargaining issues to worry about there. So, you know, I think you got to tread a little lightly, you know, just because of that. It's just a little different animal than what we'd normally agree with. And if I think probably it would be better if it, you know, it came from the top as far as city employees goes. Hint, hint, John. If, if we decided there's a need to go forward with that. I certainly believe in that, but I also believe that too, there should be legitimate, if there are people with legitimate reasons for exemptions and stuff that, you know, we should accommodate too. But but I do support our staff being fully vaccinated. I would certainly rather have it that way.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Chief. Moving on, next department up is TAFL, Chief Jenks.
All right, we had a little bit of a busy month. We had 62 runs. Just a lot of them were the typical stuff. We did end up being activated as part of the regional team for a water search and rescue in North Stonington at Wyasip Lake. We were able to locate the victim using some of our many tools that we have in the toolbox and perform the recovery for the family. That said, we had this goes on this month, but on Saturday, we had a little bit of an incident with a structure fire that was handled very quickly. Unfortunately, the building was a loss, but it was a loss before we went there. The fire marshal is investigating, so I'm not going to say any more other than everybody worked together. We had more than adequate manpower. Critical needs, we're still muddling through our budget this year. We're moving on to, I guess you'd call it phase 3 of the parking lot, now that the poles are down. The blocks are gone. We've got the guys going to take out some of the old fencing that was here, and we're going to do a bunch of that work ourselves to open the area up a little bit better. COVID wise, we're still following the current state guidelines. All of our members are masks. The building is still closed to the public at this time. So we haven't done any of the normal fundraising events or anything else we're doing. We are hosting a trunk or treat on Halloween night at the school across the street. I do believe there are several of the local civic organizations involved, or they're in negotiations to participate. Other than that, we're waiting to hear back from NPU. We sent them a date to see if they can accommodate us for the training. Other than that, unless you got any questions, that's all I have.
Mark?
No, I live right up the hill. I know you've been busy lately. You've had a lot going. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Moving on, Yannick.
Hey, good evening, everyone. So I kind of gave you a quick update last month regarding the flooding. This month we ended up with a total of 93 calls. 19 of them were considered to be storm, weather, natural disaster related. A couple of them fell into like people in cars stuck in water. They fell into the rescue category. 2 and 32, 395, keeping us busy still. We went up there at least 3 times this weekend, one for with East Great Plains for a motor vehicle accident with a car caught fire. The victim was extricated by Good Samaritans, but he was transported on a trauma alert to Bacchus. Again, we assisted TAFL in their structure fire just a few moments after clearing that car accident, and a busy time for us. COVID related supplies are good. We've had a little bit of an uptick in the number of members that have had their vaccination. So we're probably pushing the 75% mark now. Most of those vaccinations were due to their individual employer mandates. Mass in the rigs, masks on scene, and trying to maintain social distancing at the station. As far as some of the incidents that we had a structure fire early in the month. I believe at 134 Plain Hill Road. I may be the address may be Plain Hill Road. And then a few days later, we had another close call. First line caught that up in the industrial park on Woods Drive. So very busy month for us between the storms, the highways, and putting some fire out. Supplies for COVID supplies, we're in pretty good shape. We've actually put all of our stuff into our response trailer, and we plan on delivering it down to emergency management in the near future for like central warehousing and give us a little bit of room. Critical needs, we've started the process also for our parking lot, which has some capital improvement funds to help support that. And that process will probably be starting over the winter, if not early spring. For Eric, regarding the public utilities drill, I gave that information to my training officer. You should be hearing from him relatively soon. We are going to try and push it off to the cooler weather. Being 100% honest, try to take advantage of the nice weather, do ladder work with the fall approaching, chimney fires, that type of stuff, and just continue to try to flow water as long as we can and take advantage of this beautiful weather. We also participated in a state sponsored rural water supply drill in Baltic, and that went over reasonably well for them. Some follow-up stuff. Norwich Fire Marshal did contact the folks at that manage the Norwich Town Mall regarding some hydrants that were inoperable. We discovered that, I believe, during a propane leak there a month and a half ago. There have been some repairs made, and repairs on 1 or 2 hydrants continue. For Chief Montoya, the flu vaccine, what's the time on that if I have anyone interested? I have the 19th, but is there a time?
I'll have to check my email and I'll get back to you with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And then the other thing, Chief Montoya, is, with that, if there's a program that comes up related to public outreach related to flooding, that would definitely include us in that. Yeah, as everyone knows, we do public appearances at least a half dozen, 10 times a year, different places, different organizations. And, if we can get the word out, that would help a lot of folks.
Roger.
Fire prevention started the other day. Again, everyone's masked up, but there are some caveats. So when we went to the what used to be the old Pooh Corner daycare on Artrabando Avenue, it was greatly minimized. Contact with the kids was not allowed. Everyone was masked, including the students, and everything was reduced. Same thing with going to Huntington School. There's a mandate out. We're only sending specific people, and the school has a policy that we are following related to providing those fire prevention programs. And oh, and we'll be holding a trunk or treat as well. That will be outside. That will probably be outside in the courtyard of the firehouse. And I believe that's actually going to be on Halloween night, which is, I think, it's a Saturday. And that's it for Yannick.
Hey, Chief, I just looked at my email real quick. That clinic on the 19th at fire headquarters is from 08 to 09. So in the morning.
Thank you much.
You're welcome, sir.
I think Halloween's on a Sunday.
Sunday? Okay. Even better, get them home early.
Any questions for the chief, Mark?
Negative. I think you gave a pretty comprehensive one.
Thank you for that, chief. I also have your September incident reports. So thank you for those. And moving on to Occam. Don't know if we have anybody from Occam tonight.
Don't see anyone.
Yeah.
So let me just say, I think their email went out and they sent their notes in an email because Chief Spalding wasn't feeling well tonight and Chief Eggert's not available.
Thank you for that. And I did get their incident reports via email. So thank you. Moving on, East Great Plains, Chief Milton.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're prepared. I only got about 8-9 pages of notes for tonight's meeting. So, so as the other chief said, hopefully you got my incident reports as well. We had 87 calls last month. And such. So still continuing our regular training at the firehouse. Also continue with our online training for the members as well. ET51 came back from having the repairs made 2 weeks ago now, I guess, off the top of my head. I don't know, everything's starting to run into one another, so I'm keeping track kind of tough. The other apparatus went down to City Garage for routine maintenance. And as Chief Matoya alluded to, of engine 52, the shift pump shifter had been a gremlin, as we've been calling it, for I don't even know how long now. It's been a while. The City Garage has looked into this numerous times to find out what's causing it, and sometimes they think they find an issue and they repair it, and it still continues. And so we're kind of living with it, unfortunately. Sometimes it's happened in the heat of the battles during an incident. And but luckily it finally goes in. So with that being said, as I've said in the past, engine 52 is one of our critical needs of the firehouse. It's a busy engine in our firehouse, and I guess as we were gracious enough to assist the city fire department. I know it's not the best shape, best condition engine for their needs, but we wanted to get them something that they could utilize in a timely fashion. So there's that. Going along with our calls, I think we were pretty fortunate up at EGP area. I think we only did maybe 10 or so pump jobs during the storm, which was I was happy with anyways. I know there was numerous roads that were closed down in our area. I kind of felt like I was on a moat as I'm driving around my district, all the main roads, Route 82, Salem Turnpike, which is Salem Turnpike, excuse me, West Ames Street, and other areas had about 3-4 feet of water over the roads in places. So COVID supplies are good. We're all stocked up. Members are still remaining vigilant and wearing their masks on their calls and decon in the apparatus and the equipment after calls. To go along with, I'm sorry, let me back up. To go along with our training, we have a National Fire Academy instructors coming in this weekend to teach a strategy and tactics class. So just a little memo to the other departments that have members that will be participating in a class. The class starts at 8:30 Saturday and Sunday of this weekend. Our gear washer went down the end of last month, and we believe the vendor came in, repaired it, and he thinks and doesn't have, and this isn't to place blame on anything, but when Norwich had that significant power outage in the middle of the afternoon, they believe that's what might have caused that problem. A piece of electronic component inside burnt up. I don't know how. But anyways, that's all back up in working operation. Our hall renovation project's at 99% complete. We're just fine tuning some last things, so we're just about there. Currently waiting on the vendor to start siding the firehouse. As you guys, everybody knows, with the trying to get building material and shipping and stuff, that's kind of on a delay. So I have a feeling the way this is going to happen is the siding project's probably not going to happen until springtime. By the time they get the siding, it's going to be too cold for them to side the firehouse. But we'll see what happens there. Also, going back to a couple of our calls, we had a couple of significant, interesting calls last month. We had a train versus pedestrian incident where numerous departments were involved because of the conflicting reports where the incident actually took place. It actually happened on the Norwich side, on our side of the trestle down Trading Cove Drive area. And the Mohegan Tribe Fire Department responded from the casino. They walked down the tracks. They contacted us for our boat to get out there and get them. And we, like I said, because of the conflicting reports, we also had Mohegan, Montville fire companies. And I also had the assistance of the city fire department come out with their boat. So we sent the boat out there, the Mohegan Tribe paramedics and stuff packaged the patient. We loaded him on the boat, and Montville's ambulance transported from the Norwich side to the patient to Bacchus Hospital in a pretty serious condition. I haven't heard any updates on the individual unfortunately. So I'm not sure what his condition is or where he stands. The other incident was, I'm sure you probably all read about and heard about. We had a car crash into a second story of a residence on West Same Street. When I arrived, I can honestly say in my 30 plus years of firefighting, I've never seen a car hanging out of a second story of a house. Thankfully, very minor injuries to the occupants that were sleeping in that bedroom when that accident happened. Again, I put a call out to the city fire department, more specifically for their tower ladder. And when it got there, so when I got there, I sized up the area. Our rescue truck was coming. We stabilized. And once the power got secured by NPU, we stabilized the vehicle as the driver was still in the vehicle. We stabilized it with some rescue jacks that we had, and we utilized the city's truck one being up on the second floor instead of using ground ladders to access the patient. We used the city's tower ladder, and it was a better working platform to get the gentleman out of the car. So again, thanks to the Chief Montoya and his crews for those two assists this past month. Again, critical needs, replacement of engine 52. And the other critical need is our parking lot at the firehouse. I do have some areas that are starting to sink. And I believe it was last year or the year before, we had one of our apparatus had a flat tire, and John Raymond had the, I forget the company that came over to repair it. And they were on the side parking lot and put a jack underneath the truck, which jacked it up and put a hole right through the asphalt. So that is a critical need that's coming up in the budget. So that's kind of all I got right now. If anyone's got any questions.
Mark?
No questions, Chief. I'll just say, you know, obviously there's a lot of weird things that happen sometimes, and it's some of the stuff last month has been kind of interesting. So, I'll say the least.
That it has.
All right.
I just have one question, Chief. On the parking lot, have we done any bore testing to see what's going on with the substrate underneath the parking lot to see
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
whether we got erosion or settling or sinkhole or what's going on there?
We have not, to be honest with you, I didn't even think about anything like that. So that's something I should probably look into and maybe talk to Public Works, see if maybe they might be able to help us out with that or not. So
I'm trying to make,
Generally,
yeah.
when something like that happens, it's a matter of, you know, the substrate is, you know, was improperly prepared, or there's not enough drainage, it's washed away underneath or something like that. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like I said, I did not think of that, and I'll reach out and see if I can talk to Pat over at Public Works and see if it's something he might be able to help me out with.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. All right. Thank you very much for that report. And looking at our audience tonight, and I don't see anybody from Laurel Hill here tonight. I haven't heard from Chief Westerfeld in a while, but I hope everything's well and that he's healthy, and I'll give him a call tomorrow. All right, so that concludes our department and agency updates. Thank you all very much for the information. We're moving on now to item number 6 on our agenda, public safety items for future discussion. And I'll open the whole floor. Anybody that just would like to present or suggest an item that we should have on our future agenda.
Well, Joe, I think we probably should have some kind of discussion regarding follow-up on the flooding issues. That's all.
And I know that's going to be an item of discussion at the Public Works.
Public Works too, yeah.
Yep. Anything else? No, thank you. Then I will say that our next meeting will be November the 10th, 2021, tentatively, and I would say almost certainly via a Zoom meeting, unless we see a market change in the infection rate. And we change, and the city manager changes the way we're operating. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And seconded by the chair. Pro Tem Bettencourt,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much for your time and for all the work that you're doing, and be
Take
safe
care.
out there.
Have a good
Thank you.
month,
Good
everyone.
night,
Be safe.
everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Everybody.